Do you have any advice for anyone looking to start their own company besides finding a bin?
I would say like have conversations with a lot of people to learn. Don't be afraid to just network and ask questions of people. Um, whether you think of this person as someone that you want to partner with in the future, or if they're just someone who can provide you really sound advice in an area that you don't know a lot about. That's one thing I've learned. We move quickly and we just like do it. Like we just set meetings up with people and have lots of conversations if we think that they can be informative to what we're doing. Yeah, that would be my advice, is just like talk with lots of people, have lots of conversation, and try not to fall into like, don't rely on the opinions of people that like are preconditioned to reinforce you. Like the mom test, you need to like be sense checking ideas against critical voices. We definitely consult with people that really understand marketing the type of product that we offer, and it's radically different than the way that architects would market themselves. But interestingly, like it generates a lot of architectural leads. So it does make me wonder what the industry could learn from selling themselves better, like explaining what they do to the right people in a more targeted way. I don't know if there's a reluctance to do that within some firms just because it doesn't feel like you want people to come to you. You don't want to like go to them and like try to pitch them on why you're like a great service for them. But it seems like money well spent to me, to have really simple outreach to people that are really good fits for your business.
Yeah, and learn from other industries. Like if we just kind of stay in our own little nucleus, like we only have our own ideas, but we're out of the box thinkers, but then we don't go out of the box to think of it from a business sense, which I find ironic. But switching gears a little bit, I know you've changed cities a number of times between your career and education. Do you have any advice for those that have a network somewhere and move to a new city and how to kind of start building that network again?
I mean, my process for that has been mostly leaning on my network of people that I've known in the past. And also, if I join a new company, don't be afraid to go to like the events and meet everyone and try to understand what your mutual connections are with them. I haven't had like a specific professional organization that I'd like go to all of their events. Part of that could be COVID related, just because like I joined one and then everything fell apart. And so I like had to network in different ways. Mostly has just been being social with people in my field, saying yes to like holiday party invitations from your GC, like even if you don't want to go, it makes a lot of sense to go and say yes to those types of things if they're an option, because you never know where the conversations are going to lead.
Yeah, and who you're going to meet along the way. And with a new business, it's kind of like, okay, well, what if they want to build something off the back of their lot, or what's happening over there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you get into a specific discipline area, like we're overlapping a lot with planning groups and YIMBY groups and surveyor networks and things like that, it makes sense to, attend conferences, stay in the loop with what's going on in those fields. But more generally, just as an architect, it was just like say yes when you're invited to something, because you never know like who you might meet there.
How has it been moving from being an employee to owner?
It's been a big change. Architecture is a pretty slow moving field, and so at all stages of my career I kind of felt like, what's the pathway to becoming like a principal in my firm? And when it became like very acutely obvious to me was when we started working for tech clients. And so like we would be in client meetings, and the client who was calling the shots was like 10 years younger than me. And I'm thinking it was like my first experience seeing people who were younger than me with a lot more responsibility in some ways. And I've continued to see that people who are in tech like fall into that category where they're like straddled with a lot more responsibility and oversight at an earlier stage. So I've really like entered into that world. And it's not to say that I didn't feel prepared based on my architectural experience. Like I had a good deal of responsibility at the places that I was working at. But you really have to learn quickly how to deal with HR issues or negotiate contracts, read contracts, understand everything that's going into them. What are you agreeing to? What's the right insurance policy to have? Looking at the business plan, trying to project out like how much runway you have as a company and how much revenue you're planning on bringing in. So I felt prepared to do those things based on a combination of the roles that I had over the year at architecture firms, but also particularly the point that I brought up earlier about doing that dual degree in planning. Like, wasn't really sure at the time how that stuff would become relevant in my career, but it came relevant really, really quickly once I started moving outside of the conventional architectural track.
Yeah, it's funny how things kind of make a full circle.
Yeah.
How long does it take to do one of the projects from somebody being interested in splitting their lot to completion? Because I know you are more in bigger architecture companies, which tends to mean larger scale projects, which mean multiple years between design, documentation, and CA. So what's that kind of like difference in time turnaround?
Yeah. I mean, it depends what the scope of the project is. If it's our typical, you have a great property for subdivision, we've identified it, and you're interested in splitting it and recording that as a separate property, we're getting through that in about 6 months. And that's a lot faster than it used to take prior to these regulatory reforms. There used to be, that could take well over a year to do in the past. And it would be subject to, environmental review and planning commission and public hearings and things like that. The regulation has removed a lot of the individual pieces of that process. And so we're able actually to get our core approval from submission to approval in about 45 days on average, which is really awesome. And then the rest is kind of a combination of, either part of the, bureaucratic recording of the new lot process, or just the time that it takes to prepare the documentation and survey and things like that. The latter half of that, the things that we have control over, we are laser focused as a company, is like, how do we improve our process so that we can do the things that are within our control as fast as possible, and get that out of our court so that it could be in review at an earlier stage. So I think that we'll be able to make progress and get that timeline down even less. But for now, that's what it is.
Check out the full discussion from this bite of advice here. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on more mentorDINO content.